I wish I felt this is part of the movie where I wasn't feeling much, and I wish I felt way more emotional. I like what I was seeing, but I wasn't feeling like the tears, and it's frustrating because I feel like I should. Like all the ingredients are there, and I enjoyed the scene, but it was just like at this point I felt like everything was happening very fast that I was too shocked to feel anything else. I'm just like, I'm still processing on. I'm like, wait, but it's just like the movie's almost over, and I'm just like, what do you mean? Like I need time. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Most Potato Podcast, the podcast where we all suffer for our art.
Okay.
My name's Alvin.
I'm Jess.
And today we're going to be talking about Look Back, the anime film that just got its limited release during the... I don't think it's like a festival. I think it's just a typical anime release.
Yeah.
Where we just don't get enough days to watch.
This is what you get, America. You got 24 hours.
Yes. It's directed by Kiyotaka Oshiyama, and it is based on a manga one-shot story by Tatsuki Fujimoto, who is of Chainsaw Man fame. So, yes, as you can see right there.
Just the first part. I don't know what... Yeah.
We only acknowledge part one.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know about this movie, the movie follows Ayumu Fujino, who is an elementary school student with a talent for drawing manga, which she publishes in the school's paper. She soon finds herself challenged by another student, Kyomoto, who begins publishing her own manga with superior skills. The two come together on a lifelong journey of creation, friendship, tragedy, and purpose. And the movie really does live up to the tragedy part, which we'll get to later.
Yeah.
So no spoilers just yet. But for right now, tell me what you felt coming out of this movie, all your thoughts and feelings.
I felt like I wanted to fight you because we had a very heated discussion. It's like, no, we had a disagreement on...
Damn.
I'm not letting it go. I can't let it go. No, that's how I felt. No, I really enjoyed the movie. I don't know. The person next to me, I think they were sniffling over there.
I totally
maybe they got allergies. It wasn't Alvin this time crying over here, but...
Sadly, no. I did not cry this time around.
Did you feel like you would have?
No, not at all.
No? Okay.
And that's the part that you want to fight me on.
Well, no, I didn't need your tears. I'm not looking to collect your tears, but it's just like you weren't feeling like connected to the way they arranged certain things in the film, which we will get into. Mm-hmm. And I just was like, how?
How, Sway? How?
For me, it was a way of reflecting on things that you regret. It was realizing you regret this sort of thing, and everything's just kind of rushing back, and almost like a what if type of thing. That's what I was feeling and seeing. So it made sense. I didn't feel like it made it any less impactful, emotional, hard to connect with. It was just, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Damn.
But I enjoyed it. So this was a great surprise for me to come and see this with you. I know you were like, oh my God, I can't wait for this. I'm like, I don't know what this is.
And I'm still glad we ended up watching it.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Yeah, I don't really have any complaints about it. It made me feel a little nostalgic.
Didn't you say you were on the verge of tears at one point?
Yeah. I mean, but I cry all the time, so it's just it's normal. But yeah, I was feeling a little nostalgic, a little regretful, and it just I was feeling like all these things, and it's just these two little girls making manga, their friendship, and like you said, it ending in tragedy. I wasn't expecting it to end in tragedy the way it did.
I was not ready for what transpired.
I already had an idea of like what the tragedy would be, and I was just like, we should have just went with what I thought was going to happen instead, because I was like, what the fuck?
Release the Jess cut.
Yes, yeah.
Release the Jess cut. That's what we'll do.
Yeah, but what about you?
I actually thoroughly enjoyed this movie for the most part. You're making it seem like I didn't like this movie, but I liked it. I genuinely did like it. I really liked that we focused mostly on the children, because they do eventually grow up, but that's like a shorter portion of the movie.
Yeah.
I'm just a sucker for stories that focus on kids and them processing just complicated feelings and problems.
Like Monster. You guys have seen that?
That's a good one.
Yes, check out our review on that too.
Yes. Yeah, so it really hit me on a nostalgic level as well, because like I mentioned before, I have a connection to art as a kid. Like I used to obsessively draw my own like anime and manga ideas with like a bunch of my friends from like elementary school all the way to high school, and I stopped. I just gave up on it. So I saw a lot of portions of myself in this movie, and it's surprising how relevant it is to what I experienced, given that it's coming from Japan. So like they have a different culture, but there's like so many values and so many experiences that you just come across that are the same as like the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And it was entertaining. I really had a fun time watching the main character, you know, be like this stuck up kid who thinks like she's the best until she comes across this wall in Kyomoto. And I like how we got to explore their relationship a bit and see how that evolves as well. I just wasn't a fan of a little bit too much of the montaging, I think, is what I mentioned. I wish we sat a little longer with the characters and have more interactions in between them being as kids and them growing up. I just felt like something was like missing, and then by the time it ended, I was just like, wait, what? That's it? It's done? And I knew the runtime was like an hour and like 15 minutes. It's relatively small compared to the typical hour and a half and longer.
Yeah, I mean, it's like just a one chapter manga.
Yeah, and they
like
beefed it up a bit with additional scenes and stuff.
Yeah.
But
I was fine with those montages because it was like, I know like you mentioned you used to draw with your friends when you were a kid. I used to do like a lot of creative activities too with art. Mine was just more like individual. Like I always just like to do things by myself. So like I really connected with Fujino in that way as well too. But the montages where they just kind of flip through like the two characters hanging out together, growing up together, doing all this stuff, it was kind of like looking through like an album for me, which I love albums and taking pictures and collecting pictures. So it was like, I think for me, I was fine with how that was and how I connected with it, because it's like looking through like the old times. It's
looking back.
But yeah, it was like that. So I don't know if it's just I was able to connect to it, so I saw what they were doing there, and it didn't feel like it was rushing through it. It really felt like sitting down and just looking through like old times, like
snapshots of life.
Yeah, like that's how I felt. So I was like, I was fine with it. I think that's where I was just like, why aren't you connecting? What is wrong?
I connected for the most part. I think like
scrapbooking.
I think the first 40 minutes is probably like the best parts for me, and then onwards it's just like, oh, I feel this thing ramping up, and then it's like, oh, it's over. Okay, and wow, that's how it ends. Holy shit.
Yeah.
So, but we can get into more detail about that later on. First of all, we're going to start getting into spoilers now. We're going into more detail. So if you haven't watched this movie yet, definitely go watch it if it's available somewhere, and then come back to this episode.
Oh, yeah.
So I love how the opening shot just gives it like this childlike wonder. We have like this opening POV shot from like the sky, and it starts to like zoom down and follow this path towards Fujino's house. And I thought that was a very interesting choice, because we both read the one shot afterwards. Well, I read the whole thing.
I skimmed through later,
and it was very interesting to see how the director decided what shots he wanted to add or emphasize or change compared to the manga, because it's supposed to be a cinematic experience. So it's just like, all right, how do we make the opening shot interesting? Because the opening shot in the manga is just, it starts with an empty bedroom, and then you see Fujino starting to draw. Whereas here, it's like, it starts with this beautiful shot from the sky. You follow the POV shot into her window, and then you just see her drawing for like 2 minutes straight. I almost thought the screen was broken or something, because I'm not used to seeing an animated shot where it's just very static. And you're just seeing this child like pondering, like with her body language, what idea she wants to convey.
And there was like a little mirror on her desk, and I found myself just like staring so hard at it, because I wanted to see what her expression was whenever. Oh
I was looking there too.
But yeah, I was just like, who's this little girl? What is she doing? Like, what's she thinking? What's she scribbling away at? Yeah.
I love seeing that, because it just looks like anybody that's in the middle of creating something. It's like you're not just like doodling away. You're actually stopping and being like, huh,
Yeah.
And then like, just taking all these pauses. I really thought that I love that they put emphasis on those like quiet moments and like body movements and body language, because that's hard to convey in animation. So I really like how we focused on that shot. And then when we see the animation of the 4-panel shot that she drew, the first kiss manga, it's so fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
I really thought that shit was funny, where it's just like this couple that's about to get killed in a car accident, and then they get reincarnated. And then the girlfriend's like, where are you at, boyfriend? And then the boyfriend's face is like this giant fucking meteor hurtling towards Earth. And then it just opens up, and then you see that the kids in school are reading that latest panel.
Yeah.
And you see how like Fujino's getting all this praise from all her classmates. So like, damn, Fujino, like you should be a manga artist. Like you're so good at this.
Yeah.
I love that they really put in the effort to emphasize her charm in terms of like how funny and entertaining her comics are. Even though the drawings aren't really like very professional level, she can really express like her ideas just through like the behaviors of these characters that she draws. And
in 4 panels too, because what is she, like a 4th grader or 5th grader or something? So it's like...
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting because they have a newspaper and they publish these 4-panel little shorts, and I looked into it, and it's called a yonkoma format, where it's like an exercise where you practice how to draw an entire plot line in just 4 panels, which I think is probably like a pretty hard thing to do, like if you're not used to it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's like a really good practice for when you want to like flesh out more complicated stories. Because the first panel is supposed to set up like the premise, the setting of the story. Then the second panel develops the story. The third panel is like the climax, and then 4th panel is the conclusion. So I really love that they showed that she has a real talent for telling a complete story in such a short amount of time. And they're always like super weird and funny, just like a manga. Like you have to think of really weird ideas in order to make a really interesting manga. So I thought that was really funny. So I love like all the kids praising her, and she has like this big head about it.
Yeah.
I could kind of relate to that because I used to get praise like that too for like my drawings, the animations I used to do, and then even for like some of like the papers that I used to write for essays.
Yeah.
But then like when I got older and then I went into college, that's when I realized like, damn, I really ain't shit. Like some people were just too nice to me. I was
gonna ask you, it's like, when did you realize you weren't shit?
Yeah, in college is when I got humbled, because when I got a paper back for like 65%, they're just like, you could do better. Damn. And I'm just like, oh, Miss P lied to me.
She lied.
I don't know. Could you relate to like some of that moment of being praised, or not being praised, but like creating artwork and, you know, people giving you attention for it?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I did art classes, whether it was like painting, ceramics, metalwork, all that sort of stuff, and then just things I created on my own time. And it's just, I think it's more of like comparing your work to other people's.
Yeah, that's like a big thing.
That's like a big thing. You know, I don't know, like in school where they're like, all right, we're gonna put our stuff up in the hallway, and everybody, and then you see everybody's, and you're just like, why is this kid here? Shouldn't they like be in like art school or some shit like that? And then you got this like little squiggle with stick figures, and someone told you it was good, but you're just like, it ain't shit. It's just like sometimes you like realize yourself that you ain't shit. Nobody has to say that to you. Yeah. But I don't know. Yeah, I guess it was like more like that for me, like just seeing other people's work and be like, wow, they're really good. Yeah. And it was also seeing like the type of people that I thought were really good, like what were they doing differently? But you could tell like some of them was like really just like their passion. Yeah. That was their focus, where it probably wasn't mine. So I think it's like looking at other people's art, reflecting on your own. That's when you realize it's just like, I could do better, or, you know, this isn't my thing. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's where I was like, I'm gonna do something else.
Yeah, and Fujino definitely has that same experience, especially when she first comes across Kyomoto's manga, when the teacher asks her, like, hey, do you mind sharing a publishing space for this student that doesn't come to school? And then when she's like, sure, whatever, but I mean, someone who doesn't come to school, I highly doubt they'll be good at manga.
Oh, yeah.
And then
when snooty girl.
Yeah, and then when we see Kyomoto's manga alongside Fujino's, and we see that it's actually really good, like, still life artwork of just settings, and it's called After School.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was After School,
and it's really just all these settings that she doesn't even like make contact with. She doesn't come to school, but the way that she can capture the look of the school so accurately, and then compare that to like the crazy funny doodles going on with Fujino, but like the story's so entertaining.
Yeah.
That was just like, that's like a marriage right there made in heaven. It's like you got a mangaka who can do a story and then somebody who can do all the background art. That moment where Fujino was just like livid and just like furious about the fact that someone like that exists. I love seeing that moment because it took me to a time in middle school where we used to do this thing where we can showcase our drawings on like this big screen that we had in the cafeteria. They would have like a projector. They would have like announcements and stuff, but then they would showcase people's artwork. I used to be the only one that would submit artwork. And then one day, like when I was expecting mine to come up, it did come up, but then there was another submission.
Yeah.
And there was this person that drew dragons, like all different kinds of dragons. And they look really freaking good.
Yeah.
Like, I used to do just anime characters. I wasn't really good at creatures or anything. And then here comes, like, this amazing-looking dragon. Except me, I didn't get upset. My first instinct was to go back to the back room and ask the projector person, like, who drew this? Because I want to meet them. And then the person was just like, oh, sorry, like the person that submitted asked me not to let anyone know who this is.
Aww.
And I was just like, what do you mean? I can collab with this person, whoever they are. I don't care who or what they are.
Your next piece should have been like, who are you, dragon person? Please call me.
Look back, please. And I legit would walk around, like I would skim around like the lunch tables and see if anybody was drawing anything similar. And I never found that person.
That's so funny. That's so cute.
The friend that got away.
Aww.
So I hope you're good wherever you're at, dragon person.
Dragon person. That's funny.
Yeah, that was really fun. So I that moment just like sprung into my head, and that was a memory I almost forgot I had.
Aww.
Yeah, so that was really fun to reminisce. But Fujino had like the total opposite reaction. The good thing is it fueled her fire. She like starts studying a crazy amount of books.
I know.
She was obsessive.
Yes.
It's insane.
I mean, the way that they showed her reacting to Kyomoto's panel, first you have the student sitting next to her who's just like, oh yeah, compared to this stuff, your shit's amateur. Like, this is amateur work here. And then
these kids are brutal. You
they're
forget,
brutal.
like, they're in elementary school technically, but like in America, they're like middle school aged.
Yeah.
So around that age, kids can just be savage as hell.
So she hears that. She doesn't respond to it, which I was surprised. I thought she was going to respond to him saying that, but she doesn't.
Yeah.
It's her walking back home and thinking back on all the people that were just like, wow, you're so good. Like, you could
love that shot.
You could be a mangaka, or, oh, wow, this is amazing work.
Yeah.
Like, you're like really, really good. And
Yeah.
for me, I was just thinking she's probably be like, all these they just lied to me, all these lies or whatever.
That was one of the parts where I connected with her. I know that feeling.
Yes. I know that feeling as well too, and I just thought it was so funny. And then it made me think of like when a kid comes up to you and you're like, that is amazing. I'm just like, should I stop doing that? Should I tell them how? It's like, okay. But yeah, I thought that was so funny where she was just flashing back to all the praise that she ever received and like questioning it. And questioning herself. It meant nothing. Yeah. She's just like, I'm not that good. I need to do better. There's people out there who are way better. Especially, it's probably burning too after she was just like, someone who doesn't come to school.
I know, after flaming her. Yes, and then that's what she gets.
And I was just like, oh. And then, like you said, she went home, started drawing, buying all these art books. And
yeah. Which is commendable. That's great.
Yeah.
But at what cost? Because we see in the montages, she's also isolating herself a lot from her friends. Like, we just see still shots of her sitting by herself in the background or the foreground.
And it's like, what, 2 years?
Basically,
right?
2 years.
Because then they end up in 6th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, damn.
And her drawings honestly still look the same at the end. Like, come on, 2 years? Yeah. 2 years and it still look like back when you were in like 4th grade. Come on.
Exactly. So I thought that was really funny. I mean, I do like that she like went hard, but I also was like, I don't know, for me, I was like,
why
worrying.
Do you draw?
I was like worrying. I was just like, oh no, she's like totally isolating herself. Like all the days, the seasons, the years are passing.
And when you see her drawing, like you see that she's getting frustrated or she's constantly like changing things and she doesn't look like she's enjoying it.
Yeah.
And
I just thought it was so funny how she's like basically holding on to like almost like this grudge, like against
just to prove herself.
Yeah, just to prove herself
I'm better
to someone she hasn't even met. And yeah, I'm like, I guess the proving herself would have been to like become better and then like do a panel and it's like really good. But I was just like, what are you doing, girl?
Yeah. And then when it finally comes time when the two manga panels come out on the newspaper again, and she sees that nothing's changed between her and Kyomoto, she just saw that Kyomoto got better.
Yeah.
She just goes, I quit.
Yeah. And she's like, y'all want to go for ice cream? And then her friends are like, what?
Yes, we got our friend back.
Yeah. Because, I mean, her friend comes up to her, like, before. She's just like, hey, she's like, when are you going to stop drawing? Like,
oh, yeah.
Like, you know,
shot.
We're in 6th grade now. People are going to think you're weird or an otaku or something like that.
Yeah.
And she just goes like, she just kind of ignored her and she kept drawing.
She doesn't respond,
she doesn't really respond. And I just thought that was kind of funny. And I'm like, you guys were praising her before, but I guess that's like part of growing up. But I don't know, like, why is drawing so bad? Like,
that's something that came into mind because I've had similar experiences, but not nearly as bad. Like I was drawing up until high school, but I would always hear about people being made fun of for still watching cartoons or like watching anime when you're like teenagers. It's something about like drawing, doing creative things, anything related to cartoons. For some reason, people start to think you're immature just because you enjoy that stuff. And I think that's really interesting because for some reason, places around the world, there's a stigma that animation just means it's just for kids. When we've seen for like a century now, that is not the case. Like there's so much animation that is definitely not for kids. But then there's animation that appeals to kids, but it's also something that adults can like take away from as well. So I thought that was a really interesting thing, how like Fujino's friend just kind of turns on her a bit just because, well, I kind of get why she comes from that place because she's mostly concerned about her well-being and the fact that she's self-isolating.
Yeah.
It's more that and not so much judging her for still drawing. Because I think if they were hanging out normally, I don't think Fujino's friend would have said something like that. But I thought it was interesting how she brought up the term otaku, saying that she might be a creepy otaku. Yeah. And I was just, I never really looked up the definition of otaku. I just assumed it was like, oh, somebody who's like enthusiastic about anime and stuff. But when I looked up the definition, it's specifically about having an all-consuming fascination with things like animation, anime, computers, video games. So in a sense, I could see Fujino's friend making a point. It might have been harsh.
Yeah.
But we see that Fujino is just completely sacrificing her relationships just so that she could try to get better than this stranger that she's never met.
Yeah, because she does hang out with her friends, but while she's hanging out with them, she's drawing.
Yeah.
And they're just like, what? Like, why? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess it's like more concern, but...
but there's still always that stigma too. Like there's still people to this day, if they look at our shirts, they'll make some sort of comment or maybe they'll make a face or something like we're kids or something.
That's just good because y'all don't need to know how old I am. Like y'all already know. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that her friends and her family were like concerned, and she just didn't really care. She's just like, I'm gonna do this until I'm better, and she wasn't. She finally quits.
Yeah, that's when things turn around, is when she quits.
Yeah, I felt really sad that she quit like drawing when she's like, basically she's like, I give up. I've been there before, and like even now at my big age, I'm just like, I still pick up things and I'm just like, I quit, and then and then I start them up again. But I think that's like just how I've always been since I was a kid. I'm constantly like picking up things, doing stuff, stopping, whether it's quitting or I just get distracted. I'm easily distracted.
Well, I feel like you like most people quit for like normal reasons. Maybe it's just because like you get busy, life happens, and then you don't have the focus for it. Whereas with her, she just has a big ego and she just is accepting defeat when it was never a competition to begin with. Because they both have completely different styles of drawing anyways. And yeah, it was a shame to see her quit. And it was just like, really, that's it? All that effort?
I know.
It's like, you're not doing this because you love it. Like, you just want to be the best. So, and especially since there's always going to be somebody better than you. Like, that's something that I still wrestle with sometimes because now that I do music and play piano, I always wish that I was at a level that I see some of my peers at who've been doing it since like their childhood. But then I have to remind myself that I'm good where I'm at. Like the way that I've made this much progress is amazing because this is just a hobby to me. It's not like a career or anything.
Yeah.
And the fact that I started at 19 and then I can look back and be like, damn, I'm definitely way better than I was like those first even just 10 years. Like I'm way better now.
Yeah.
So I always try to focus on like my own self progress, but there's always going to be a nagging piece of my brain where I'm just comparing myself to the other person and be like, damn, I want to be like them. Yeah. And it's just, I think it's an itch that can never leave you. It's just a matter of how do you manage that? Mm-hmm. And Fujino doesn't know how to manage that at all.
No.
Which I guess is fine because she's a child.
Yeah.
So it's like kids have a hard time regulating their emotions. They're experiencing a lot of things for the first time.
It's honestly a little funny because I'm just like, I'm just like, you're just a kid. I'm just like, when you get older, you'll realize or something's going to change. Right now, it's just like, oh, she's just a kid.
Yeah.
So I can understand why she's like reacting this way, behaving this way.
Yeah. Exactly. But I really love how they finally set up the moment where Fujino meets Kyomoto, where Fujino is forced to deliver the diploma to Kyomoto's house.
Yeah.
And the thing that struck me about that encounter is, first of all, the fact that there's no parents for whatever reason.
Yeah.
There's just a cluttery mess of just drawing notebooks all over the hallway. It looks weird. It just looks like somebody's in the middle of packing and moving shit or something. And it's just like, damn, like, we thought Fujino was obsessed. There's piles of sketchbooks that are already completed.
Down the hallway.
It was spooky almost.
Yeah.
And then when Fujino draws, like, the mean-spirited Yonkoma comic, where she just basically draws 4 panels where, like, a crowd is, like, telling Kyomoto to leave the house. Another crowd is telling her not to leave the house.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, oh, like Kyomoto is taking first place in this competition, and then the last panel is just Kyomoto's skeleton in the house.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, middle schoolers really are just fucking savages.
And then that panel accidentally went under the door, and then
of course, just happened to accidentally fly into the door.
And then that was funny. Fujino, she's like, oh shit, and she like runs away, but Kyomoto gets it, and she runs out after her.
The POV shot of Kyomoto running from her bedroom.
Yeah.
Almost looked like a horror movie.
I know.
It's like somebody chasing after somebody violently.
It was so funny, but it was really cute that when we meet Kyomoto and she comes out, she's just like a hardcore fan. She's just like,
she acts like she's meeting a real professional mangaka. It's
calling
insane.
her sensei and everything, right? She's like, Fujino sensei, and I was just like, what? And then even Fujino's just like, sensei, like what?
Yeah. So I'm retired.
Yeah, that was such a cute moment. Kyomoto I wasn't expecting her to be like that. She's very shy, and she's afraid to like be around people. Like that's like what it is. I thought she was gonna be like sick.
Yeah, I mean, she technically is like just mentally, emotionally.
I thought like more like she's
terminal or something.
Yeah, she's like ill and she can't really leave the house, that sort of thing. Physically. But I just thought it was like really cute how like she was so excited to meet Fujino and have her come there, and
all the stuttering she does.
All the stuttering, yeah. And she was just like so funny. And then she's just like, "Can I get your autograph?" She's like, "I don't have a pen. I don't have a paper. Oh my god!" And
sign my back.
Sign my back. Which I thought I was surprised that Fujino did it. I didn't think she was going to. I thought she was gonna be like, "You're."
I think because she was looking for that praise again.
Yes, that's exactly.
She got the satisfaction. It's like, oh, this person that I fucking lost to in my mind is praising me. I'm like, you know what? Fine, I'll give you my signature. That's fine. And then when Kyomoto asks her like, why did you stop drawing manga? Fujino can't even bring herself to be honest and be like, listen, you threatened me, so I had to quit.
Yeah.
She said, listen, I had to take a break because, I'm cooking up something real, like, I'm cooking up some fire right now in my head.
Typical kids response.
And I just got to wait until it's, like, finally done in my head and then put it to paper. So then that just reignites her fire to do manga all over again. Kyomoto gets super excited. And then we get that again, that awesome, like, just aerial shot similar to the beginning of the movie where rain starts coming down. And then we just see Fujino just doing just fucking step-up dance moves in the rain, just skipping along and splashing water and just being like, that's right.
How did I not put that together? The water splash, that should have instantly connected me. I thought that was so funny. I was just like, this kid.
That shit was so funny. I just love how just a complete 180 for her, just for getting praise from her opponent in her mind. So I love that ignites her, but then it's also a funny, interesting moment how she can't even be honest with this girl, talking about like, I'm not gonna lie, like you spooked me, and I felt discouraged, so I stopped.
Yeah,
like it just shows that she still has such a thick wall that she just won't let anybody in. But it still makes her a special moment because then Kyomoto becomes the only person that she ever hangs out with moving forward.
Yeah,
we see like the whole montage of them drawing manga together. And that's where like one of the moments where like the montage is just like jump scared me a bit. I was like, wait, what? They're sharing a room now? Saying they're already drawing manga and they're already submitting for like awards and shit.
Yeah.
Like I like that montage, but I also kind of wish that was around the point where I started wanting to like stick around with them longer and see them with like the struggles, the trials and errors of them drawing the manga, agreeing on ideas, and then finally submitting. But I know this is like a totally different type of story. Like it's not aiming to be like this rags to riches type of story. It's way more self-reflective than that. And I understand that, but I just couldn't help but be like, damn, I wish I just sat with them longer. I wish this was like a almost 2-hour movie with additional scenes and shit so that I could see their full like experience of their relationship together. But I still like the montages because it's a very clever way of speeding up time and just giving you the information without like using narration or exposition or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I really like when they got to the point where they submit their first official one shot. I think it's called Metal Parade. And the first thought that came to my mind was, I wish I could just read it because that just sounds like an anime ass title.
Yeah.
And the drawings were looking really cool too. They get to celebrate their first publishing ever. I don't know. How did you feel when they went to the corner store and they picked up Shonen Jump?
And they were flipping through and they were looking and then they saw their name. And I was like, that is so cute. They were so excited. They were just like celebrating.
In the dead of like a blizzard basically happened.
I was just like, what's going on? I said, where are they going? And then I was like, oh shoot. I was like, is it published? I was worried that they were going to get ripped off or somebody else was going to slap their name on it or something. And I was like, y'all ain't about to do that to my little girls right now. But they were so excited. I just thought it was such a sweet moment.
Yeah.
Making the montage a little bit more like you could connect to it a little bit more because you saw just them flipping through all like the days and the
months,
seasons, months of them working hard together to get this moment, to get to that point. And I was just like, that's just like really sweet. I just thought that was so nice. I was like, this girl who's totally jealous of this other girl she doesn't even know, this other artist she doesn't know, them becoming that close to the point where they're hanging out basically every single day. Kyomoto is what now staying over? Was she staying over at Fujino's house? It looked like basically. That was Fujino's room.
Yeah.
She's staying there. She's sleeping on the floor. They're laying there, you know, together and working on this manga, working on the story, doing all this stuff, just day and night. That's all they do. And then I know Fujino, she has to go to school.
Yeah.
When she's going to school, Kyomoto's still there working on stuff. You know, she's still trying to, you know, make sure this gets done in time because they have a deadline.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so sweet just to see like that finally come together and for it to be printed and for them to share that moment together.
Yeah, that was really good. And then you see them celebrating down the street. There's like this really nice shot of them running down the street and they're holding hands. But Fujino's always like the one leading her.
Yeah.
She's always the one at front and they enjoy each other's company. But eventually Kyomoto just feels like she wants to go it alone. I mean, there's that really sweet moment on the train where Kyomoto goes, I'm glad I came out of my room today. And I love how like it means two things. Like it meant one, I'm glad that I literally came out of my room and wasn't a shut-in.
Yeah.
But it was also like, I'm glad I came out into the world and actually got to do something that I care about with you. And I'm glad that I'm friends with you.
Yeah.
I just love how that line just says so much without her having to literally say all that stuff. The way that she says that, it almost takes Fujino aback and she has to like give a sarcastic answer.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, you could, you know, pay me back in like 1,000 yen or whatever the fuck she said. And I thought that was really nice. And I love how that was still a moment where Fujino can't bring herself to be mushy with her. It's like she still is always keeping her like at bay a little bit, at least emotionally speaking.
Yeah, that's true. And I feel like Fujino I feel like she's definitely aware of their dynamic.
Yeah.
Like, she's like the leader, you know, Kyomoto's always following behind her. I mean, as we see that with them running through the street, and, you know, Kyomoto's always the one in the back. But that moment was really like sweet when she said that, because it made me think back to like all the hard work they put in for, you know, their first manga and all that stuff, and them doing research, them going out to the stores, and, you know, going out to get food, watching movies together, all that stuff that you could tell she would have never done, not by herself. And Fujino just happened to be the person that, you know, came to her house that day, and from there it's like it's history. So when she is reflecting on her art, because I think that's what made her decide as they got older that she wanted to go to university. There was a scene where she was looking at her art, her work, and she was looking through like these books of other artists who draw background scenes and stuff, like the background settings.
Yeah.
And you could just tell she's like, I want to be like that good. Like, I want to be better. And I felt like I was really disappointed and sad when she finally told Fujino, like, hey, actually, I think I want to go to university. Because in a way, it wasn't as like aggressive as Fujino, when Fujino first, in fourth grade, when she first saw the panel of Kyomoto's drawings. But it was a different type of like, I want to be better. Like, there's more out there, you know? And I feel like it's because they're a little older, a little more mature, more understanding. She sees that it's possible, you know? And I just wish she had Fujino's support to continue to go out and do that. She was going either way. She made up her mind. And I like that she got that strength from Fujino, and their friendship. It just sucked that Fujino couldn't see that as well, too.
And couldn't support her.
Or
wouldn't. She chose not to.
Yeah, she chose not to support her, which I was just like, that really sucks, because all those times of them running, you know, through the streets, doing stuff together, I felt like it was like definitely from Kyomoto's perspective. Her looking at Fujino, going towards things, doing things. And I felt like I saw her changing. I didn't see Fujino changing so much.
No, she stayed the same.
Yeah, it was like, it wasn't focused on her, and I didn't see much changing with her, but you saw Kyomoto changing. And that's what I loved about it, and that's what made that moment so sad when they basically parted ways. Yeah,
and going back to your description of like the montages and seeing the changes in Kyomoto, I love the transition between childhood and adolescence, where they're doing the scene again where they're running together and they're holding hands, but then you see Kyomoto letting go.
Yeah, slowly.
And then it fades, and then we see that Kyomoto and Fujino are now older. They're like 17, I think, and they're meeting with a publisher at Shueisha, I think, and they're basically getting an offer to do a serialized manga. And Kyomoto says, no, like, I'm sorry, like, I can't help with the manga. I want to go to college.
Yeah.
And the way that Fujino just completely just diminishes her, it broke me. Like, I was like, I wanted to beat her ass. like really? Like, this is not just your partner. This is your friend.
Yeah.
Do you not see her as your friend, or do you just see her as like this fucking tool? Because she keeps telling her, like, if you just keep following what I'm doing, follow me, your life will be fine. We'll be able to do this. And it's like, why does that matter so much more than seeing your friend be happy and satisfied?
Yeah.
And I love that that's something that gets brought up, because like you mentioned, teenagers, that's when they start to think about what they want to do with their lives. It's like, yeah, they're about to get published, but that you're going into a life where you will not have opportunities to do new things. Like, when you make manga, we're not experienced manga creators, obviously, but now with the internet age, we can see how stressful and how busy manga creators are, like the type of schedules that they have, the pressures that they have to meet for deadlines.
Yeah.
That's the world that you're going into, and I think Kyomoto really wanted to explore more things. And that's like basically the ripe age where people are not sure what they want to do. They know that they want to try something else that's different. Yeah. I felt Kyomoto, like I really felt what she was going through.
Yeah.
And I love that she stood her ground on that shit. She's like, I'm sorry. Like, I know you'll hate me for this, but
yeah, I was a little worried that she would have like been like, okay, I'll follow you.
Yeah.
Like, I was worried but I was surprised, but then I wasn't, because I was just like, I see like a change in her. Like, I know like there was a change. So I was really happy for her in that moment, but I was just also really sad about their friendship. Yeah, and how, because their friendship, like how it started, you know, how it was going, all that, like it was it was really touching. And
yeah,
for it to just be like, just because of a decision, I felt like Fujino didn't realize, like, you guys aren't going to be stuck in this like moment forever, and the moment is just wanting to draw and make these stories, and that wasn't always what it was going to be.
Yeah,
you know, she never considered Kyomoto. I feel like her feelings and just her as a person, like you said before, like it's like she was like a tool for Fujino.
Yeah, and that's exactly what made me concerned about Fujino. I was like, I really wonder if you see this person as a true friend or just like a stepping stone for you to make it in your business. But then she was just like, oh, but I could get background artists, but it's like, you know, you don't want any background artist. So yeah, and it just showed her immaturity even still at 17. I'm like, damn, you still haven't fucking changed from like 4th grade.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
People be like that.
It do be like that, yeah. It's insane. Yeah, so then we see that they do part ways. We see that Fujino is now a professional mangaka. You see her drawing on this big-ass tablet now. It went from her drawing on paper in her little desk at home to now just this big-ass desk. And we see that she's not enjoying herself. She doesn't look like she's having fun. She looks like she's having mental blocks. She's stressed. I just really like that parallel between that shot compared to the beginning shot when she's in her room, where you see that she's having a little more fun drawing. She's like way more passionate compared to what we see here. It's just like it's just work to her now.
Yeah.
Because we see that there's a broadcast on TV about a massacre that happened at an art school.
Yeah.
And then I like that she just instantly rushes to call Kyomoto. It's just like, okay, so you do care.
Yeah. Kyomoto don't answer though, guys. And I was just like, she's fine. She dropped her phone. She didn't drop her phone.
Yeah.
Well, she probably dropped.
Yeah. And then when you saw the mom calling back.
Yeah.
And then we don't hear the conversation. We see the result by just the look in her eyes.
And she drops her phone. And that's when we're just like, what, really? Kyomoto died in like a axe murderer. I was like,
yeah, the very specific way of depicting death in a movie. And I never found like an answer to that. I mean, we did watch like an interview with the director after the movie, but I forget if he answered that question about why specifically the using an axe murderer. But I've based on what I think about and what I've learned, I know that Japan has had a history of massacres of like people using blade related weapons to get people, because unlike here, they got gun control in Japan. So imagine if they had guns, because it was a surprising amount of people that actually passed away in this attack in the anime.
Yeah,
I think it was like a dozen people that actually died. So I think that was part of it. I think it was like it wanted to shine a light on something that is a problem in Japan, because I don't think they did that in a way to like sensationalize anything. It just felt too particular. And the fact that it was an art student and he was rambling on about like, oh, like you've been plagiarizing my art, so I'm just going to destroy everything and I'm going to destroy you. I thought that was, I think that makes it a more meaningful type of situation, as opposed to like Kyomoto dying in a freak car accident or a disease or anything, because it's tied to the passion of art and how people process that or don't process that well. Seeing a person that like has warped that passion and turned it into like this dark, terrible fucking thing, it's kind of reminiscent of how Fujino treats people when it comes to her art. I'm not saying that she would go in and slice people up, but it's the way that she hurts people in the way that she talks to them or just isolates from people. I thought that was like, I think maybe I'm stretching here, but I thought that was like a parallel that was very subtle. Because again, this movie, it's always focusing on why do people draw? What is it just passion or is it something else?
Yeah. What
motivates you and what keeps you going? So that's something that came up in my mind after the movie. I was like, they wouldn't just randomly throw a dart on the board and be like, oh, okay, axe murder. I felt like there was like a reason behind that. And I think it was to highlight the dangers of people just taking it way too far when it comes to their passion. And then there was like this flashback shot that's like just a couple seconds where Fujino and Kyomoto are walking through the snow and they're teenagers. There's like this one quick piece of dialogue where Fujino just goes, "Oh, if you just keep your eyes on my back, you'll grow too." And that's reminiscent of the last conversation that they ever had before they separated. Because now she feels like she's responsible.
Yeah.
For basically, like, she feels like she actively killed her. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. How did you feel about Fujino revisiting Kyomoto's house and just overcome with grief and blaming herself? Was it her fault?
No, of course it wasn't her fault. I felt really sad that's where she came to. And I wasn't like, oh, she's making it about herself. It didn't feel like that. It really felt like regret. Like, you know, yeah, you came to her house. You're the reason she came out of the house. You guys had a whole, like, this friendship. You guys grew up together. You did the things that you guys loved together. And then I feel like she's feeling regret because she, instead of keeping contact with her, she just blew her off and, like you said, belittled her and told her that, you know, she'd be better off, you know, staying with her. Yeah. And that's not how that went. They didn't seem to talk for, I don't know how many, like, if it was years. And when you finally reach out to her, it's for something this tragic. And you're never going to see her again. You're never going to talk to her again. You guys won't ever be able to reconnect. I don't know if Fujino would have ever had, like, a change of heart when it came to, like, how they parted ways. Eventually, maybe Kyomoto would have reached out eventually. I mean, she had her number saved. I can only assume that Kyomoto also had Fujino's number saved as well, too, still.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe one day they would have reconnected. But because you were stubborn and you didn't want to support her, you'll never know. You'll never have that. And now she's feeling like, man, she would have still been here if I would have just never came here. But if you never came there, you wouldn't have cared. You wouldn't have known to care about this person tragically dying, because she could have still, that could have just been written for her. That could have just been her future. But it's not her fault. I felt really bad that she felt that. And I felt like that's just normal for someone to do. Yeah. You start with the what ifs. What if I would have done this? What if I would have called or texted or
even with people that didn't fall off with people, like if you just lose somebody that you were on good terms with no matter what, that's part of the grief stage, which really sucks. It's like you start blaming yourself.
Yeah, you want to, like, make sense of it. You need someone to blame, something to blame, whether it was an actual accident or, I mean, in this case, this was clearly just not an accident, but you want to make some sense of it. Yeah. Blame something, blame someone. And I feel like that's what she's doing. And that's why she, like, we have that alternate, like, timeline, like, fantasy where she, like, never met her. She never met her. She never came out of the room. And they live a life, but they still end up meeting again somehow. Yeah. It's just like, it's just really sad. That was like a really sad moment for me. And I was just like, damn, I was like, don't do that, girl. I'm like, you an asshole, but don't do that.
When we got to that scene with the alternate timeline, first of all, that was after she tears up, that's after Fujino tears up the old 4-panel manga that Kyomoto still had of her dying in her room. And that's ultimately what solidifies her guilt, is she thinks that she brought this on her as a kid. And then when that piece of paper goes into Kyomoto's room, we're taken to that alternate timeline where, like you said, they never met. And then we see that Fujino ends up being the one saving Kyomoto from, like, the axe murderer. Yeah. Which, just watching that scene just was haunting. Like, we already knew the outcome from, like, previously, but witnessing that was just like, it hit too close to home. Yeah. Because we just hear too many stories of things like that now, just in our country alone. And then for that to be undercut with comedy, with this girl just, like, karate kicking this dude and then breaking her leg. Yeah. Like, it just came to me now that whole scene that played out, it makes sense why Fujino sees an image on a blank piece of paper in Kyomoto's room where she sees that scene played out as a comic, because that's the way that she processes things. She's always using humor. When she's drawing, she's always drawing some funny thing that happens at the end. And the fact that in this alternate timeline, we see that something just so dark and harrowing gets resolved by something really comedic, like her drop kicking this dude, saving the day, but she breaks her leg. Yeah. And then reconnects with Kyomoto, and they're just like, we're gonna do manga. Like, I I wish I felt, this is part of the movie where I wasn't feeling much, and I wish I felt way more emotional. I like what I was seeing, but I wasn't feeling like the tears. Like I wasn't feeling the way that I felt in The Wild Robot. There were so many points where I was so close to crying.
Yeah.
And then for some reason here, I just wasn't feeling it. And it's frustrating because I feel like I should. Like all the ingredients are there and I enjoyed the scene. But it was just like at this point, I felt like everything was happening very fast. Like specifically with the death of Kyomoto, it just came out of nowhere for me.
Yeah.
That I was too shocked to feel anything else. Like by the time that Fujino's done grieving for her friend, I'm just like, I'm still processing the fact that she's gone. I'm like, wait, but it's just like the movie's almost over. And I'm just like, what do you mean? Like I need time. I don't know. That was like, I like seeing that, but I think that's where I just wish I had more beefier runtimes with the two characters together before they eventually split up. Because again, it's based on a one shot and it wants to be as close to that adaptation as possible, which I commend and I respect that. But also a part of me just really wishes like, damn, I wish we got like a more liberal adaptation where there was just more freedom to do stuff in between, fill in the blanks so that I could feel like, damn, I really know these two characters and I really care for them.
Yeah.
I care for them just enough, but I feel like I didn't have enough time, especially like during the death scene. I was like, wait, she what? So I don't know. And I don't know if I'm explaining that right. I know that you think that I should be crying during that scene, but I was just like, I felt nothing.
You felt nothing? I
didn't feel much. It was weird. It was really weird.
I don't know. I think I just felt something because I knew what she was like doing. She's trying to process. The scene did like this weird alternate timeline. It did take me aback for a moment because I was just like,
I was like, wait, is this really happening?
Yeah, I was like, I thought they were just gonna show like the day it happened and that's,
and I'm glad they didn't do that.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't do that, but that's what I thought they were doing. So then when Fujino comes in and drop kicks the guy in the back, I was just like a little confused. And then when it turns out like it in this alternate timeline that Kyomoto drew this panel, I was just like, okay. I was just like, this is how she's processing it. She's wishing that she was there. You know, but it was also her wishing that they never did meet, but it was a chance meeting where she happened to save the day. It was just her processing, and it was just kind of sad, and like she needed to like for that to happen and for it to conclude, like this little alternate timeline needed to conclude for her. And then she like takes like what, there was like a blank, was there a blank panel there? Did she take?
There was like a bunch of blank ones, and she takes one of the blank 4 panel pages.
And I felt like that was just like her like being okay, you know, with how things are now, like regretting it and accepting it. But I just felt like, I don't know, I just felt like it was just like a really awkward kind of like flash scene, and I was just a little confused, and then it came back to it, and I was like, okay, I get why she's doing this. Now it's time to move on, because I felt like she didn't really have time to grieve either. I know when it happened. At least
we didn't see it.
Yeah, no, but when it happened, like I think for her manga, she kind of just like writes a little note, like, you know, I'm going to be away, like this isn't, there's going to be a stop in like the chapters or whatever it was. And I felt like it was just like, she has to get back to that. Like she has to keep going. She has to keep moving forward. She's going to keep doing this. But it was just like really tragic how it all had to be processed. It happened so quickly, but it was still sad. Yeah,
it's super sad because we see that she just goes right back to work at the end of the movie. The only difference is like she posts the blank onkoma on her window just above her workstation, and then just goes right back to drawing.
Yeah.
And then there's like this conversation that happens off screen where Kyomoto asks her at one point, "Why do you draw, Fujino?" And then we never get like an answer, like no verbal response. We just see Fujino continue to draw on her workstation with the blank panel that she has from Kyomoto's room. And from my understanding, that's for us to understand that now she finally has like an actual purpose that connects her, where she's drawing because she wants to stay connected to Kyomoto now that she has no way to like be with her anymore. she wants to kind of continue this dream for her, or just dedicate it to her, because she wouldn't be in this position without Kyomoto. That's at least how I interpreted it. I don't know if you had any ideas.
No, I see it that way. I mean, because the manga that she was writing, she still used the same name that they had always used?
Yeah.
It was a combination of both of their names, right?
Yeah.
So she still continues to like do that, and I feel like she's always wanted to be connected to her, and she kind of always has been by doing that. But
that's true.
I felt like I feel like you're right, where it's just like she now has a purpose, and it's to stay connected to her, and that's what she's going to continue to do, and that's all she really can do. She's never going to have Kyomoto there to do the background drawings. I know you mentioned before how she said she could get anyone to do it.
Yeah, which she does have background assistants, but they are not Kyomoto.
They're not Kyomoto. So that's like the only difference. And I feel like I was wondering to myself, like, would we have seen that same like drive and passion like we saw when they were younger, them working together, if they did reconnect? She'll never have that. Like, what if they did reconnect? What if they did start collaborating again and working together again? Would she have that sort of drive and passion again like before? Because like you said, she just sits there at her desk and it doesn't seem like she's having fun. It's just work, but she's doing it, and we see all the volumes of what was this,
Shark Kick.
We see all the volumes, like it starts off slow, but then eventually there's just like there's more and there's more and there's more, and this whole time Kyomoto's been buying them. You know? So yeah, it's just like, it's just really sad. Like, it just became a movie of regret, and I was just like, great, Alvin. I was like, thanks. It's Sunday evening, and you brought me to a depressing movie, and now I got to go to work.
You're welcome.
Woo.
You're welcome. Yeah, but it's also definitely more than just like regrets. It's also finding purpose and always asking yourself, why are you doing what you're doing? And are you okay with what you're doing? And also, I feel like Fujino having that yonkoma placed on her window is also a reminder to stay connected to people. Like, her work is not the only thing that's important. You wouldn't be able to make your art if you didn't have a lived experience as a human with human connections with people. So I think that also served as like a reminder to stay connected to the people around you, because look at the result of you just isolating yourself. So And I'm curious if like the author is trying to convey that, because we don't know much about a lot of the favorite authors we have. We just know that their schedules are just brutal. Their lifestyle and work life is just horrendous, and it's not really their choice. It's just what you go into to follow your passion. So I really wondered if these two characters were like the two halves or two parts of him, where it's just like he wrestles with, does he still want to do this? Does he wrestle with like why he's continuing to do these projects? I mean, it's a career now. It's like you'd have to completely do a whole new line of work if you're not doing manga anymore. So I really wonder if these two girls were supposed to represent parts of Fujimoto, because I also came across this fun little fact. I think I was looking at the IMDb page. There was like a little note saying that if you put parts of Fujino and Kyomoto's name together, you get Fujimoto, the last name of the author. And I was just like, is that a stretch, or is that a coincidence, or I don't know, maybe we're looking too much into this, but I don't know. I think that stands. I think there might be some truth to that yeah, maybe these are parts of the author, and that these names are also not there by accident. You want to go into ratings?
I really enjoyed it. I would give it a loaded potato. For a short film, it was very emotional, and I don't know, I connected with it a lot. I'm still thinking about it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
I would give it a loaded potato. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it at all. I didn't know what I was getting into. I was just following your lead. But yeah, what about you?
I will give this I think I will give this a loaded potato as well, even though I didn't feel as emotional as everyone else. Everyone else is posting videos about like how this anime broke them. I was like, I wish I got broken, but maybe I got like cracked. Yeah, despite not feeling overly emotional and overwhelmed and overcome with all these emotions, I still thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I think for the most part, this movie lived up to my expectations. I connected it with it on different levels, and I really encourage everybody to go see this. Like, even if you're not a creative person, I think it's a story that anybody can connect to.
Yeah.
And yeah, that'll conclude all our thoughts on Look Back. Let us know if you've watched this movie, guys, and let us know all your thoughts in the comments. We love to hear your thoughts from you guys. Make sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, your enemies, your manga colleagues, all that good stuff. And yeah, until the next time, guys, we'll see you next time. Peace.